Hey, hoping everyone is good. Hoping everyone is great. Hope you have been able to get a breather in. If you are not tuned into it, I need you to go to Gentle Hours. It's every Monday at 7 o'clock. Even though I posted on the podcast at 7, I think by the time it gets to YouTube, it takes about maybe 15 to 20 minutes. So it posts around 7:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's just a place to relax, get yourself together. It's a reset for the week, and I'll tell you, it's not only has it been great for myself, but from the feedback from others, it's definitely been a reset. Three things that I'm learning right now, and if I could speak openly and candidly, I think I'm learning all of these things in real time. Learning while I'm actually trying to navigate through life and relationships, through purpose, disappointment, and healing, through it all. And I don't think that we as people talk enough about how uncomfortable growth is. And everybody loves to, post a finished version of themselves after healing. And everybody loves to post a revelation after they survived it. But if I must be honest, baby, being in the middle of learning something from God, that's a different type of experience. Because what I'm recognizing is that sometimes the lesson doesn't come gently. Sometimes it will come through heartbreak. It'll come through a lot of silence. It'll come through disappointment, through people misunderstanding you, and through outgrowing things that you beg God to keep alive. And lately, these are the three things that is keeping a heavy sitting on my spirit. And so the first thing is, where I put a period, God has changed into a comma. I'm going to say that again. Where I put a period, God has changed that into a comma. And that one, my baby, that one, I think through this growing of life has definitely worn me out. Because I don't know about y'all, but when I decide that something is over, like entirely over, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I'll close that chapter and I'll lock that door, and baby, I'll turn those lights off and walk away from it. And I'll just think that friendship is done, that opportunity has passed me by, that relationship perhaps is over, or I missed my chance, or it's too late now. But what I found is that God sits there and he's like, baby, I told you that story wasn't over. It didn't end. And I'm learning that just because something, may have paused in my life does not mean that God abandoned it. And just because I become uncomfortable does not mean that he stopped working behind the scenes. Sometimes, my babies, we put a period where God intentionally placed a comma because he sees way farther than we do. That period that we put at the end, we equate it as finished. But that comma says there's more to the story. And I'll be honest, sometimes I think that we rush to periods because they feel safer. Closure for us feels safer. Finality feels safer. Knowing something is complete feels, safer. Because sometimes it's easier than sitting in some form of uncertainty. And the thing about uncertainty is it requires a lot of trust, and trust will expose every area where you struggle with your control. And I realized sometimes I wasn't actually asking God to lead me. I was asking God to agree with my timeline. I'll let that sit right there. I take a pause because I think some of y'all felt that one. I'll be honest and say that, I wanted immediate answers. I needed God to give me clarity and give me immediate healing. And I wanted God to give me immediate direction, but God does not operate off of my emotional impatience. Sometimes he will allow things to sit unfinished because there's still something developing in you. Sometimes, my baby, the delay is mercy. Because there were, seasons that I prayed for things I could not sustain yet. There were doors that I wanted open while honestly my mindset was still broken. There were some relationships that I wanted to be restored while I hadn't learned accountability, and there were opportunities I begged for while my discipline still wasn't strong enough to carry what I was asking for. So now when things pause, my baby, I try not to panic immediately. And the biggest thing is I try not to force endings anymore. Because what if this isn't a period? What if God is still writing everything? What if this pain is still becoming purpose? What if this delay is still protection? What if, this silence that I'm sitting in is still some kind of instruction? And I've learned that requires a different level of faith, because sometimes God will continue a sentence you are emotionally prepared to bury. And also, not every comma means reconciliation in a situation. Not every comma means to go back. Not every comma means to reconnect. Sometimes the comma is just for you, my baby. Sometimes God keeps the sentence going because you still have growing to do. You still have some healing to do. You still have understanding to gain. And that has been hard for me because I like certainty. I like knowing exactly where things stand. I like clarity. But if I must be honest, growth has taught me that clarity does not always come immediately. Sometimes obedience must come first. Sometimes, my faith comes first. I ain't gonna say sometimes, always. And I also had to learn to surrender. And surrender, my baby, would definitely humble you. Now, the second thing that I am learning in this process is that many people will always hear you wrong because they only understand through the scope of their understanding. Because for a long time, I'll admit I exhausted myself trying to explain my heart to people who were committed to understanding me, misunderstanding me. Everybody does not have, the emotional range and the maturity and the life experiences or the self-awareness to understand what you mean, even when you explain it clearly. Sometimes people can only hear you through, and I've said this before, their wounds, their trauma, their ego, their insecurity, what they would do and what they have experienced. So, you can say something gentle to someone and they still hear it offensive. You can, set a boundary and somebody will still take that as rejection. You can ask for accountability from someone and somebody will, take it as disrespect. You can outgrow something and somebody will hear it as betrayal. And that used to frustrate me so bad, but I just understand that people choose to hear things differently. I'm learning that understanding is deeply connected to perspective. Everybody is not listening to understand you. Some people are listening through survival mode. Some people are listening through their unhealed pain. Some people are listening only to respond. Some people are listening through the lens of who hurt them before, they arrived where you were. And baby, once I understood that, I stopped exhausting myself trying to force people's understanding. Some people have already decided who you are even before you even speak, and no amount of explaining can heal a perception someone is committed to holding on to. That doesn't mean that you have to stop communicating clearly. And that doesn't mean that you stop being kind, and that doesn't mean that you got to become cold, but it does mean learning how to stop over-explaining yourself, because, baby, some conversations don't need paragraphs. Stop texting them daggone paragraphs. They just need some distance. And I also had to learn that everybody will not have the capacity to hold your intentions correctly. I've learned through situations that people will project onto you. People will misunderstand you. People will villainize you because it helps them avoid accountability. Some people need you to be the bad guy, because if you're not, then they have to face themselves. And baby, that has nothing to do with you. And I think one of the most freeing things in adulthood is realizing I do not need everybody to understand me in order for me to stand in my truth. And that, my baby, has definitely changed my life. Because I used to think that if I explain myself long enough, eventually somebody will get it. But I've learned that some people hear with their ears and other people hear through their experience. And those, my baby, are two different things, which leads me to the third thing that I'm learning. Ooh, let's talk about this one. Everything does not require me to convince somebody to see life through my eyes. Because what I've understand, my babies, I used to wear myself out trying to make people understand my perspective. I wanted people to see what I saw, feel what I felt, understand why something impacted me the way that it did. But then I realized sometimes I was fighting for emotional validation more than anything. I wanted someone to say, you know what? I understand why that hurt you. I understand why you responded that way. I understand your heart. Just because I do doesn't mean that other people do. But maturity has been teaching me that agreement is not always necessary for peace. Everybody does not have to see life the way that I see it, because we are all shaped by different experiences, different upbringings. We got different wounds. We have set in different environments. We all have different fears, and we have different levels of healing. And once I accepted that, I stopped trying to, drag people into my perspective. Every debate does not require us to sit in a courtroom. Everything is not an opportunity for me to prove that I am right. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is just, say, okay, we see things differently, and then we just decide to leave it there. Because, baby, do you know how much peace comes with no longer needing to win every misunderstanding? Because sometimes we keep conversations alive long after they should have ended because we were addicted to being understood. I need you to throw that away right now. And I really had to ask myself, why do I need this other person to validate my reality so bad? Because, if I know what I experienced, if I know what I felt, if I know what happened, why am I tiring myself trying to convince somebody who already decided not to understand me? And this does not mean that you become dismissive. This does not mean that, in situations like this, you avoid communication. You still hear people out, but it does mean that you recognize when a conversation is no longer productive. Some people are not trying to understand you, my baby. You already know. There are some people in conversations that are merely trying to win. And you would drain yourself emotionally trying to explain your humanity to people committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes peace looks like letting people keep their perspective while you keep your own sanity. Let them have what they have. Let them see what they see. Let them feel what you feel. Because even if you were trying to convince them otherwise, they still gonna stay on what they gonna stay on. And honestly, I think all three of those lessons, they connect. Because see, when God changes your period into a comma, people may misunderstand your journey. And when people misunderstand your journey, you will be tempted to over-explain yourself. But maturity is learning that I can trust God with the unfinished sentence. I can accept that everybody would not understand me, and I don't need to force my perspective into everyone around me. Baby, I have found freedom. And to be honest, I think that I'm finally arriving at a place in my life where I'm no longer fighting to control every outcome and every perception and every misunderstanding. I'm learning to let God finish the writing. I'm learning to let people think what they think, and I'm learning to stop abandoning my peace just to be understood. Our human ability is to connect and be understood by people, but you also have to recognize that we are all different, and it would be very asinine for us to think that everyone will get us, they'll like us, they'll feel us, they'll understand us. It's not to happen. It won't happen. And you got to be okay with that. You have to sit in your peace. Well, and I also want to say, when I do these episodes, I come from a place of experience, so I'm sharing out of vulnerability, but I want you to replace the I with you and understanding where you are in these situations as well. Oh goodness, we had, let me say this, Gently My Baby in Atlanta 2 nights, Tuesday and Thursday, and baby, it was everything. I am so grateful for the people who came, for the people who sat with me, for the people who gave me their light, love, and their energy. The room was filled with so many emotions, but it was a beautiful, beautiful occasion. Of course, it's poetry, but it's it's some talking as well, because I wanted to mesh conversation with poetry, and I wanted everyone to understand where I was, or maybe where my feelings were when I wrote a certain or particular poem. And I also wanted people to feel it on a personable note. We are not any different. Maybe different circumstances in a different place in our life, but there's nothing different between men and women, just the sex. And so there was an understanding that in that space, we are to be one, we are to be loved. Listen, we had all demographics, we had different ages, and baby, at the end of it, we had us a little party. We danced a little bit, and people really got to connect with each other, and we did a meet and greet, and it was beautiful. So I ask of you, if you are in these areas, to come sit with me, to come to a show, an experience. This is my first curated experience, and God has really been blessing in this season of intention. St. Louis and Chicago is coming up at the end of May. Those shows are sold out, but I have Nashville June 15th and Pittsburgh June 17th. I would love, absolutely love to fill up those spaces. I would love to sit with as many people as possible. I would love to connect. And I would love to see as many faces and connect and look at as many faces as possible. And then, if you are in the Houston area, I will be a part of a show July 12th in Houston. You can, of course, y'all can go to my website and look at all those things. And then in August, I will be in Philly and New York. Philly is August 16th, and New York is August 18th. I want to see you there. The tickets in Philly are soaring. You know what I'm saying? Philly is, oh goodness, when we say the city of brotherly love, I feel it just the way I do in Atlanta. Those tickets are soaring. And also in New York, I can't wait to be in that space. We are in talks of coming to Boston. So as soon as we declare, a space and a time and, all the things, we are coming to Boston. And, for those who are tapped into the podcast, my baby, you heard it first. We are bringing another show to Chicago. Chicago sold out very quickly. And I was informed that there's a waiting list, and so Chicago is on the docket for a second show. I am blessed, but I want to preface this with saying this, and I want to offer this to every single person who is listening to me. I am only blessed because I listened. And I can say that in this part of my life because many times I didn't. I walked away from everything that God was telling me to do because I didn't feel I was ready. I didn't feel I was equipped. And I had a lot of baggage that I didn't want to walk with in whatever it was that God had promised me. But what I'm learning about this process of life is that God is not asking you to be perfect, my babies. He is asking that you trust what He has in store for you. And so, for whatever you want to do, whatever you want to step into, whether it's moving to a new location, you want to start a new career, you just want to pivot in your life, you want a new change, trust the journey, but also trust yourself. Trust yourself enough to reimagine what life looks like on the other side of pain and trauma and disappointment and all of the things, because we all go through it. But also make up your mind that your trauma and your pain and your hurt and the emotional pulling is not your identity. Because see, I would like to be victorious, and I would like to stay in victory, not be a victim. All right, my babies. Again, I'm going to remind you, June 15th, Nashville, Tennessee, my babies. Please come sit with me. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, June 17th. Baby, come sit with me. If you are in Houston, July 12th, come see me. And August 16th, Philly. And August 18th, New York. You can go to www.seasondialogue.com. I be sounding so professional. Let's do that again. www.seasondialogue.com. Okay. All right, my babies, I really love y'all, and thank you so much for y'all just being y'all. And don't forget, when you get a nugget of your time, say a silent prayer. Cover yourself in prayer. Cover yourself. Cover your kids. Cover the people closest to you. Cover them in prayer. It is important. This world is changing, and we need it more than ever. All right, my babies, I'm gone. Love you.